Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to the SD WAN Show. My name is John Young. I am the SVP of Channel Sales and the Channel Chief at AireSpring. Today, we're going to cover several topics with regards to SD-WAN. We'll look at the state of the union of SD-WAN. What's the current landscape, and how do we use it? How do we identify opportunities? And within the current climate, what are some differentiators you should consider when you're looking at SD-WAN? As an agent, there are many options out there. Why should you consider AireSpring? And what role does SD-WAN play in the cloud and digital transformation that's going on all across the industry? We have assembled a pretty good expert crew here. These are the guys that the experts go to. These are the guys that the agents rely on. These are the guys that my team relies on when we need to architect an SD-WAN solution. Today we have Mike Chase, SVP of Solutions Engineering. We've got Dave Pierce. Dave is our Director of Global SD-WAN. And Eli Lazich, he's our Director of Sales Engineering for our Global SD-WAN and Business Development for Global SD-WAN. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What we love to do is talk a little bit about the state of the union of SD-WAN. I think as SD-WAN has evolved, we've seen several different changes, several different phases of SD-WAN. This is a current phase that we certainly didn't predict, but it does present new opportunities. Mike, if you could kind of give us an update of where you think the SD-WAN is currently.
Sure. SD-WAN has really become the de facto networking standard worldwide. Almost any significant network project or upgrade these days in any part of the world includes SD-WAN at the base for whatever gets built next, whether it's SIP trunks, IP phones, or like bandwidth aggregation of wireless, microwave, fiber, copper, satellite broadband circuits. All of this stuff that really has no commonality amongst them, meaning that they have different, mediums, transmission speeds, carriers, etc. But SD-WAN box just combines them all into one big pipe. It gives you a lot of flexibility in your network design. It also means that SD-WAN has network remediation in it for packet loss, jitter, and out-of-sequence packets using techniques like packet duplication and jitter buffering. So it turns bad network connections, even on broadband, into something that's about 10 times better, which is so close to MPLS that I personally can't tell the difference. I've been doing networking for decades. And you can do this for all your sites, or you can do it for just one site by pairing with one of our internet gateways. Last but not least, the IP mobility feature, where we actually deliver public internet IPs over SD-WAN from our data centers, is huge, because using those IPs, you get rock-solid reachability for remote users, even when your upstream internet circuits are flailing around. It also allows you to move an entire office and all its gear without having to reconfigure anything but your upstream internet connections once you get to the new location. So if you have a firewall, for example, it keeps your public internet IP, the NAT configuration, access rules, everything stays the same. Enormous time saver. So to conclude, SD-WAN is literally everywhere. It's the foundation from which everything else these days gets built, because without a rock-solid network, it's hard to do just about anything, and SD-WAN delivers that in spades. As a Cisco CCIE, number 7226, I can tell you, looking back at all the other gear I've had to use prior to SD-WAN, it really feels just medieval. There's no comparison anymore. So we use it in literally everything.
Thanks, Mike. And Mike also runs our SD-WAN boot camps that AireSpring holds all across the country and virtually right now. But you want to hear a lot more from Mike, we do have these SD-WAN boot camps that you can register for. Eli, how about the state of the union that you currently see in dealing with our global SD-WAN product?
A global front, the challenge becomes as you have long distance links between these physical locations that organizations like manufacturing and technology companies tend to deploy across the globe, especially places like Asia Pac, India, in the European continent, and then reaching back across the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and getting subjected to things like latency, packet loss, and jitter. SD-WAN helps to alleviate that, and in particular with the AireSpring approach to global SD-WAN, the way it's been implemented is by using a global private backbone, a GPN, or a global private network is what we refer to it as. And the benefit that provides is those companies that might otherwise have been subjected to the vagaries of the public internet and the increasing latency, the packet loss and jitter, and the resulting decrease in line of business application performance. can take advantage of the benefit of a reliable, consistent, and scalable platform to send their intranet or their private enterprise wide area network traffic across, and then take advantage of some additional features that we've built in, such as WAN optimization, to help increase the performance of their applications.
Excellent. Dave, your perspective on the state of the union of SD-WAN, like maybe how it's evolved. Just in the last year, we have seen several stages of it, but maybe there's some pieces here you can fill in for us.
Sure, John. So when you start looking at what's gone on, year over year and the observations around that, when we have discussions with organizations looking to implement it, sometimes there's a WAN transformation challenge there. But what we've seen is, complexity when you start looking at how that impacts the performance of both operational performance for organizations looking to implement it, as well as application performance when you look at what are they trying to do, especially from a global SD-WAN perspective. There's a lot of challenges when you start to look at how do I connect, for example, locations in Asia Pac and China back into the US, and how do I impact and increase user experience. So more and more year over year, organizations are looking at that, and that's their primary focus. And the other piece around that is automation. They want to be able to go into an orchestration layer, for example, automate as much as they can, and have the capabilities to allow that edge device and solution to essentially run a lot of their business initiatives when you think about their business policies. So the capabilities we've got around that and what we've deployed allows them to do that and increase their applications.
Excellent. So we know under the covers with AireSpring, we've chosen VeloCloud as best of breed. To run its SD-WAN operations, US and globally.
Great question, because the most important thing to understand about the SD-WAN network landscape right now is that there's 48 different vendors in the market, and there's literally no standard. When you look at 1980 IPsec VPN, it's now 40 years old, your network vendor says they have it, then you automatically know it'll work with anyone else. Why? Because it's a standard. Not so with SD-WAN. Vendor solutions don't work together, and every vendor has features, not standards. Now, how they implement those features is where the devil's in the details, meaning that the biggest caveat to SD-WAN is in its implementation. If you have a solution that's session or flow-based, not packet-based, then good luck trying to get features like 2 millisecond hitless failover and failback. Or if your routing mechanisms are weak, then good luck getting features like IP mobility. And I mentioned this earlier where, we actually provide public internet IPs over SD-WAN, put them on the back of the box, and then customers use those for their firewalls and other devices. So, if you have all these things, how the vendor actually implements it is wildly different. And so no one gets a pat on the back anymore for redundancy either. You get a pat on the back for a rock solid network, and that's what SD-WAN delivers. So we chose VeloCloud because it has all the top features. It makes 99% of the hard decisions for you correctly right out of the box. Even when you look at the top vendors, they require you with a tremendous amount of complexity to, turn this to the left, turn that to the right, tune this. It's great for guys like me when you're a CCIE and you got a lot of certs and you get paid to do this stuff. But, it's a lot easier, frankly, on customers and even on me when the box makes 99% of those decisions, the right way, the right time, right out of the box. The other thing is that when you look at VeloCloud, they have wide adoption. There's 60 plus carriers worldwide, and there's millions of boxes deployed. So it's a very, very stable solution. It's the gateways as well that are very important. It's the only solution out there that really does virtual cross-connect capabilities properly, meaning that it's built to be multi-tenant. To use a lot of other solutions, when they say they have a gateway or they have a controller, we would literally have to host as if we're a cloud hosting company, and that's not our forte. We would have to host one virtual machine per customer. We'd probably have, tens of thousands of those just to keep you separated and then connect you to other resources like public clouds, colo facilities, SaaS providers, and so on. And the nice thing about doing it through SD-WAN is when you do these virtual cross connects, you actually get QoE, quality of experience, which is the new QoS end to end. When you do things with VPNs and old technology, you don't get, QoS end to end, and that can really hurt you. Last but not least, the easiest thing to point out is that when you look at, I don't put a ton of faith in Gartner, but when you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, even with 48 vendors and 10 years of doing SD-WAN, VeloCloud's never left the number one spot. And I think that says a lot because, number 2 all the way down to 48, those guys are shifting around all the time. So when it comes to features and everything else, there's simply no comparison. There is no close number 2.
So for agents, it's important to know that AireSpring is always on the leading edge of what Velo does, and we're one of the first to offer the 600 series. One of you guys answer, Mike, maybe about why it's important to do business with someone who's on the leading edge like AireSpring.
Sure. AireSpring's got a really good group of engineers and everything else. And so what are some of the differentiators that we offer? I call it kind of the 10 commandments. So number one is I believe we were the first carrier to give out read-write access to our orchestrator, and we still do it for free. A lot of our competitors charge to get access to the SD-WAN orchestrator. We also offer DDoS protection for free for any public internet IP being offered behind our SD-WAN. The world's largest DDoS attacks in 2018, about 2 years ago, were 1.3 terabits per second. So to defend yourself, you need a DDoS provider, because a single carrier, a single box can't stop that kind of attack. Most carriers, to be frank, are lucky if they have a few hundred gig links in their backbone, and we're talking about a digital tsunami that's about 13 times that speed. So the fact that we do this for free, yeah, we're the crazy guys. Or as I like to say, family-owned, debt-free super carrier who's been in business for over 20 years, and this is our way of saying thank you for your business, versus nickel and diming you on something that is table stakes of the game if you want to be on the internet at all. Number three would be, we have IP mobility. That public internet IP you get from us can follow the box no matter what carrier or circuit you plug into. That's huge, because in the past you had to own your own IPs, you had to have BGP. These days you can get a FiOS connection at home, and if your company or you personally happen to own some public internet IPs, you can have it delivered to your house and you don't have to run BGP. And it fails over again in 2 milliseconds. Even when I was owning cloud companies and failing things over with BGP, it'd take 30, 60, 90 seconds. Couple more reasons. We manage your existing internet carrier circuit, and you can plug that into our SD-WAN. A lot of carriers are like, hey, you didn't buy it from me, not my problem. When we show up, we're not going to ask you if you have internet. Everybody has internet, and you want to plug that into your SD-WAN solution and maybe buy some more circuits from us, sure, but you can plug that in there. And when you do, we'll manage the ticket on that. So, as much as you'd love to spend a few hours talking to your broadband provider on a Friday night, you might have something better to do, and we'll do that for you and follow it through to completion, which also means we have a lot of engineers, when they start kind of double talking as to what the problem is, to straighten them out and say, no, it's this, and you need to go fix it. Another reason, we got hardcore route switch guys. I'm a CCIE, but I got that while I was working for Broadcom, but the reality is I'm not the only smart guy on the team. We got smart guys here on this panel. We got a lot of them rolling around our different offices worldwide. So if I don't know the answer and that happens, I go to some of those guys and we'll figure it out for you. But you've got to understand route switch, because when you put SD-WAN in, it's going to integrate with your LAN and a whole bunch of other resources. And that's where it gets painful. Again, as I said earlier, it's in the implementation. It's how the vendor, does a feature, but how they actually implement it, and then how that gets put into your LAN. We also, have affordability. That's always been kind of a thing with AireSpring. If it's not affordable, it's not really usable. Same thing if it's not secure, it's not usable, right? But when you buy from us, the hardware, the software, the support, the upgrades, and maintenance, it's all inclusive and starts off around $55 a month. That's pretty affordable. Last couple reasons, we offer flex licensing. It used to be, and actually it's still the case with most of the 48 vendors, that if you plugged a gig circuit into your SD-WAN, and those are getting cheaper by the day now, right? Everybody has one or wants one. You would have to pay a gig license, and that made it extremely unaffordable, okay? So we can actually, plug in a 100 meg circuit or a gig circuit or whatever, and you can buy a license which is less than that to protect your voice, your video, your important applications, and then just send the rest of the traffic out to the building across the way or the internet or whatever you're doing, and not pay for that just because it's plugged into SD-WAN. We also support any kind of circuit, private, public, MPLS, internet, microwave, broadband, satellite. We sell all that. We support it. And we've got 58 gateways in 19 locations over 3 continents. And then last but not least, of course, I'm going to say we totally rock, but at worst, to be honest about carriers, we suck less than the other guy, all right? SD-WAN for us is growing almost 300% year over year. And I just want to say thanks to all our AireSpring agents and customers who put their faith in us, because it's been a tremendous ride over the last 3 years. Now we have a global network that mirrors that success. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Dave, Eli, you guys speak to a lot of master agents. You work, pretty closely with the master agent engineering teams, which is a great relationship to have in this business. Dave, when you come to a master agent engineer who's obviously recommending solutions out to their agent community, what do you say about the differentiators of AireSpring, other than some of the points Mike has made?
Yeah, John, I think to your point, it's the technological differentiators, right? I mean, one, we're a VeloCloud provider. They'd like that. It's a differentiator. There's a lot of different providers, a lot of carriers that these solution engineers can pick from. I mean, there's no shortage of them. As Mike said, there's 40 plus different providers. How do you pick and choose who you want to go with, right? And so when we start to look at that, it's really around a couple of different things. It's the flexibility in the deployment. We can come into the table on a global scale. If organizations are in far-reaching portions of the globe and they can't get to back to the different POPs and locations, we can support those with the internet over the top. Or if we start to look at where those applications are really mission critical in certain parts of the globe, we can roll out a global private network where it's the express freeway, and they can utilize that in conjunction with OTT. So it's all about the flexibility. It's about having flexibility with the deployment schedules. It's about having the capability to layer that with additional solutions that we have, whether it be a big thing that the solution engineers like, they can come and get global internet procurement from us, right? And you can tie that all together with link monitoring and everything else that comes along with that with our multi-cloud connect. So we can cover a lot of things under one roof where a lot of our competitors don't. And that is a big differentiator.
Yeah, thank you. Eli, you work on a lot of complicated applications given a global scale, and those tend to be a lot more complicated when you're architecting the solution, just given the landscape. Anything you can add to the differentiators that AireSpring holds when an agent or a customer is choosing their provider?
Kind of to both Mike and Dave's points. And by the way, on a Friday night nowadays, Mike, during the days of COVID, I don't know that I've got much else to do besides take a network support call. Not like the old days. But yeah, some of the things we end up talking with some of these master agents about that pop out are, again, to Mike's point, VeloCloud. VeloCloud's the premier solution in terms of SD-WAN. That buys us points. It buys us attention from the get-go. And then the fact that we've got this global private network on top of it. So it gives us the best of all worlds, so to speak, in terms of offering an SD-WAN solution, one that's built on the market leader as well as the research analyst leaders. And then this ability to integrate a global private network that adds speed, scale, and flexibility, and mitigation of packet loss, jitter, latency, and all that stuff that tends to inhibit the performance of line of business applications. That ends up being huge. We've got a number of comments from these master agents to that effect that we didn't know. Literally, if I can remember the words verbatim, were something along the lines of, we didn't know that AireSpring was involved in this and had this type of a global private backbone. It's a huge differentiator. And then on top of it, the fact that it's VeloCloud, that's the underlying SD-WAN solution, just brings a lot of attention to the table.
Absolutely. Well, good. That's a great segue here. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about our global SD-WAN offering with Dave and Eli.
Cloud computing as we know it is in the midst of a digital transformation. As businesses continue to move mission-critical applications to the cloud, they require improved performance, flexible bandwidth, and more control than what traditional WAN networks offer. That's precisely why AireSpring created Managed Global SD-WAN, a fully managed, comprehensive, end-to-end solution for organizations undertaking the digital transformation journey. Let's take a closer look at the top 10 opportunities for you to join CTOs, consultants, and networking professionals in leveraging Managed Global SD-WAN from AireSpring. Power your solution with VMware SD-WAN by VeloCloud, a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader. Utilize a fully managed Layer 2 global private network backed by a service level agreement that replaces the inherent unreliability of long-haul public internet access to reduce latency, packet loss, and jitter. Build a hybrid network using a combination of a global private network and the public internet for maximal flexibility. Access multiple points of presence across the globe. Replace or augment expensive, capacity-constrained legacy MPLS networks. Leverage powerful orchestration and management tools to provide deep granularity and improved control. Connect directly to the cloud for enhanced application performance. Gain access to highly available, dedicated connectivity to and from locations in China. Partner with a single vendor to source, design, implement, and support internet connections for last-mile circuits globally. Be protected by proactive 24/7, 365 network monitoring and resolution, covering all connectivity, whether provided by AireSpring or other vendors. AireSpring's managed global connectivity solution offers considerable flexibility, enabling you to mix and match deployment options that best fit your geographic location and performance objectives. Combined with our global internet connectivity procurement service, you truly have one vendor for worldwide broadband, LTE, Ethernet, satellite, and MPLS services, all under one bill and one point of contact. Want to learn more? Contact an authorized AireSpring partner or call us today.
Hey, welcome back. I'd like to talk a little bit more about what AireSpring offers in the SD-WAN community, just beyond what we typically see. AireSpring now has a global SD-WAN product, which really is part of the differentiator that we've been speaking about and why customers and agents choose to do business with us. You can imagine if you have 15 locations in the US, but one or two outside the US, you might be out of luck with many vendors, actually most vendors that work with SD-WAN. But AireSpring has launched a global SD-WAN product, and we've got two of the experts of the global SD-WAN product, Dave and Eli here, to talk a little bit more about it. Dave, as director of global SD-WAN, tell us a little bit about the offering and how it differentiates AireSpring in the SD-WAN community.
Sure, John. So I think the biggest thing when you start looking at AireSpring's unique network architecture, it's fully flexible. It is allowing a mix and match of both over-the-top type deployment solutions as well as utilizing our global private network. And as you mentioned, when we start to look at understanding where the organization and those locations reside and how those mission-critical applications have to move from point A to B, whether it be sitting in China or having to come across the Pacific Ocean back into the US to hit one of their head ends or headquarter locations, we have the capabilities to pull that through. And we do it very efficiently, very effectively, and it is SLA backed as well on the global private network when it comes to latency and so forth, to be able to ensure consistent application performance. So that is a big differentiator. And I think the other piece, and I know Eli will get into this a little bit more from a technology standpoint, but I think a big thing that agents really like about what we offer, and a lot of them didn't know that, is not only we can provide the global SD-WAN solution set, but we've got the capability to do international circuit procurement. So now they've got one stop to come in and purchase that from us, include that as part of the overall solution set. We can then overlay that with link monitoring, so we can troubleshoot and resolve and repair those different links and circuits that the organization have, taking a little bit more of that total cost of ownership off of that client's plate and allowing us to manage that accordingly. And then when you start to look at other elements with multi-cloud connect and the other solution sets we have, the deal sizes get a lot larger for the agent because now the client can come to us and put everything on one piece of paper and have one point of contact and one point of resolution. Those are big pieces that we do. Eli, I know you can get into it a little bit more from a technical perspective.
So to add to that, again, I'd reiterate a little bit of what we said on an earlier segment. The VeloCloud solution from VMware underlies everything that we're doing with SD-WAN, global SD-WAN in particular, in both Dave and mine's case. And then the big benefit there, of course, is the flexibility that it offers. It doesn't tie you into a particular type of connectivity solution. Whatever your connection capabilities are across the world, you're able to take those connections and feed them into a VeloCloud edge device. Mike mentioned earlier the orchestrator. I don't remember if we talked about the fact that the orchestrator from AireSpring is dedicated to AireSpring, meaning if you're a customer that's using the AireSpring solution, you're getting a dedicated solution. It's not shared with any other service provider. That orchestrator is dedicated to AireSpring customers alone. And that, of course, provides the central configuration components that are disseminated out to those edge devices. And then again, that GPN provides that reliability, that flexibility, and that ability to scale customers that are in far-flung locations. Dave mentioned some of the features that are included in there that offer performance improvements for customers that have far-flung and long-haul type of locations. And again, I'd mention the fact that we've got WAN optimization built into the GPN POPs across the world, 15 and counting at this point. Those will be expanding as customer demand requires them. And then the piece that Dave just mentioned just a second ago called Multi-Cloud Connect, that offers our customers the ability to ride that so-called superhighway of our GPN and take an off-ramp. If you think of the Autobahn in Germany, you can go as fast as possible on the superhighway. When you get to your destination, you take a quick off-ramp to that destination and you're there. So in the same fashion, think of these cloud providers, whether it's a virtual private cloud and an infrastructure as a service, software as a service, or platform as a service. Any one of those we can directly connect to with our Multi-Cloud Connect, take that customer across the GPN with all of the features that we've mentioned so far, and deliver them to the doorstep of that cloud provider so that they can more effectively consume those cloud services.
Excellent. Thanks, Eli. Yeah, it's Global SD-WAN can change the game for you as an agent, but it also can give you, our SD-WAN product in general can give agents, more commission streams. They can give another revenue stream. They can layer on other services. Dave, as I talk to a lot of agents, they're always asking me about the buyer's persona. They're asking me, who uses SD-WAN? How do I identify SD-WAN opportunities? Who should agents target when they're looking at SD-WAN to build their commission streams and to build their revenues?
No, that's a great question, John. So when you start to look at the typical places and within an organization that a lot of folks focus on is around obviously IT, and that doesn't go away. Obviously, as a major linchpin for who you target, whether it be directors of IT, CIOs, and so forth. And part of that is, what is the aptitude of the technical buyer? What do they look for? It's about performance. It's about return on investment. It's total cost of ownership. So those are kind of understanding what those technical buyers' issues are and having that discussion with them. Other ones too that we see is, especially when it comes to applications and performance, there's a lot of business units outside of IT that are impacted, whether it be the digital marketing, it can be sales, it can be HR and operations. And there's a lot of different applications, as Eli mentioned, that reside outside of that where we have a positive impact when you start to combine both an edge device deployment over the top or through our global private network to get to those SaaS applications. And there's a lot of pain there for those people outside of it. A lot of times we find that the IT folks may be telling you, hey, everything's okay, everything's cool. You go talk to somebody else within the organization of a director or C-level type individual, they may very well tell you something different. And so if you can take that route, it gives the agent an opportunity to go wider and deeper within the organization now, to have those business and lines of business discussions, right? So we recommend that if you can, focus on the primaries, which are your IT level infrastructure folks, but also don't be afraid to go out and have those discussions with some of those other entities within the organization. And a lot of those different entities also are responsible for UCaaS and some other solutions that we offer. So your deal size will get bigger as you have those lines of business discussions.
Yeah, and things are changing. I mean, the way customers are using SD-WAN may change. It may evolve. Mike, we've seen in times of offices being shut down, how executives are using SD-WAN in their own homes, given the level of investment that is being made, and then other high-level employees. Are you seeing SD-WAN being used differently, say, in the last 3 months than maybe you saw before?
Absolutely. And, it's really changed a lot of, not just new ways to use it, but old ways to use it as well. I mean, as an example, AireSpring, AireSpring's been doing SIP for over 20 years, right? So at this point, we're up to about 5 billion SIP phone calls a month. That's nearly 60 billion a year. It's amazing because there's only 9 billion people on the entire planet, right? So in the past, we would design things where you had 2 circuits, right? Redundancy. But then you'd have to build 2 SIP trunks on top of those 2 circuits with 2 different IP addresses. And, when failover occurred, your inbound and outbound calls would drop, but then you could immediately redial out and take new calls and that sort of thing. But customers, employees, and everyone was upset because they just got interrupted. Now, you look at what's going on this year with the virus, this sort of thing. Now everybody's trapped at home and the voice is even worse. The collaboration is worse because everybody in your neighborhood is home. And so, you're kind of sitting here going, man, I don't know if I'm going to have a job because I can't even seem to work from home. And so things have totally changed for us. Now we can build one SIP trunk with one IP address, any number of circuits, 2, 4, 10, 20, doesn't really matter, with any carrier, any transmission medium, any which way you can get out into one or a pair of SD-WAN boxes as well. So you got high availability options that are still there. And they keep you online uninterrupted. I mean, you can lose a circuit, you wouldn't even know. We'll send an alert to your phone. That's usually the only way you know. Back how I used to know is users would call me up upset, like, hey, what just happened? And half the time I'm in the middle of something else, I'll be like, I have no idea. Let me go find out. So now you're totally impervious to upstream failures. And so what we've seen, particularly this year, is that when you want to build a rock solid network, networking in many cases is not the customer's business. This is the only way to do it. When I did Cisco Juniper, so many different routers, those things sent packets out to the internet or across the private link or whatever. They had no visibility. They could care less, didn't know if it got there, no idea, didn't care. And there was no way to improve it. If you had packet loss, you had to go complain to your, internet provider, and they usually didn't jump on that very quickly or at all, right? And there was no guarantee because you're probably crossing 7, 8 internet providers on the way to your destination where the problem is and who's going to actually be able to fix it. They say, it's congestion. It'll go away in a couple hours. Meanwhile, you're trying to work. So another example, with that work from home crowd is a lot of people are, getting remote access VPN to get into their corporate resources. So if the public internet IP of that head-end box terminating their connection is on a carrier or circuit that goes down or has issues, they suffer. Now, SD-WAN ensures that IP address never goes down. Connections remain stable. And if the user's having a bad, broadband day or issues on their end, and they can go get an SD-WAN box for about $55 a month. If you break that down, on a 40-hour week, you're paying 34 cents an hour to guarantee that you can actually do your job from home. What's the option? I decide to get fired, over 34 cents. So even if you had to pay for it yourself, hopefully your company is going to pick up the tab, but even if they don't, it's worth it. And then when you look at your CEO, your CFO, your CTO, your top sales guys, critical personnel, it's a no-brainer. It's a good investment.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important for agents, trusted advisor partners, however you consider yourself in this business. You are the consultant. And in these times, being a consultant to the executives of a company on their own personal journey through this virus, it can lead to further opportunities down the road. Certainly, I've spoken before about how new opportunities are out there with SD-WAN and others because they're condensing locations or moving locations. There are opportunities out there in amongst the kind of the craziness that we see. So when you see the articles about how corporate offices are downsizing and moving, there are opportunities for these guys to utilize your services. And if you're there to advise them on some of the ways SD-WAN is changing the overall business, you're going to become a trusted advisor down the road for all of their services. And in this business, stacking services means more commissions to you. We see a lot of agents come to us, and Mike, certainly to your solutions engineering team, about what do I look for? What are the biggest challenges here? I need to see things ahead of time. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges and obstacles that agents are facing when talking to their customers, or maybe even the customers are bringing, maybe they're not sure, they're not educated, but we're trying to help our agents become more educated in SD-WAN. What are some of the challenges or obstacles that you see today?
Sure. The 4 biggest challenges that we seem to see over and over again is, number one is picking the right vendor and provider, right? I mean, VeloCloud's number 1 out there, but with 60 carriers or more than 60 carriers to choose from these days, which one do you go with? So VeloCloud's number 1, and I have to say AireSpring is number 1 in rocking that space. I sit on the customer technical advisory board for the product, and we're the only global super carrier I've heard of with our own international VeloCloud gateways. A lot of people leverage, VMware's international gateways or so on. We've got our own. So when I, mentioned 58 gateways in 19 locations across 3 continents, Europe, USA, and China, and expanding in other locations as well, those belong to us. And it's our team maintaining those. We're on the latest version of firmware. That's huge because out of all the people doing VeloCloud, there's tens of millions of these boxes deployed globally. We're in the top 10%, and that allows us to do things that others can't do. For example, offer the brand new VeloCloud 600 series, 3400 series, 3800 series. And those are exciting boxes because those are the ones that do VNFs, virtual network functions, like virtual firewalls and stacking on all this other value add to the box, which is really kind of exciting. So number two is you got to design the right solution. Integration with your LAN is where a lot of telcos, the wheels fall off the bus. Knowing how data centers work and how to integrate with data centers, knowing how the cloud works. I mean, usually find somebody who can know the LAN, or maybe they're familiar with data centers, or they used to be a cloud guy. But all these things are very different. So we've got people who've worked heavily in those industries, and it can get tricky. But that's why we've got a hardcore LAN, WAN, cloud, route switch, crew that can handle it. Number three, choosing the right policies. Everybody's always talking about the size of the box and the license and kind of the features. They forget to talk to you specifically about the policy. And what I mean by that is, what traffic are you going to prioritize? What traffic are you going to deprioritize? I'm almost seeing nobody having deprioritization conversations. What are you going to backhaul maybe to a centralized or network-based firewall or other security infrastructure? And that offers up, if you have those conversations, huge cost savings. It's either that or you got to buy a firewall at every single site, and that gets really expensive and unwieldy. And then last but not least, you've got to explore UCPE. Most people don't even know what the term means because nobody's having the conversation with them, but it means universal customer premise equipment capabilities, such as virtual cross connects. It used to be you'd go get a PRI connection, you get another circuit to your cloud, you'd get one between your buildings. Pretty soon you got, a dozen circuits you got to manage with a dozen different carriers. It's a real headache. SD-WAN combines all of that, okay, into SD-WAN, and then you can add things like virtual route field segments, advanced SD-WAN concepts, and we do a lot of this stuff. A lot of folks right now are just focused on getting their offices connected, and this is a huge mistake. I mean, if that's all you're trying to do, you could use any SD-WAN solution, okay? But what I see happening now, because a lot of people are now connected with SD-WAN, is that if your vendor or provider doesn't offer a strong roadmap, you're going to get mad pretty fast when you find out about all this stuff you're missing, particularly around virtual cross connects. There's an average of several thousand virtual cross connects to clouds, colos, many other software providers that you can get to with full QoE, quality of experience, QoS end to end, right? And so what I see happening at some of these other vendors and providers is getting pretty ugly because they don't have that story. So I guess the message on number 4 is, stick with AireSpring and VeloCloud because we've got you covered. You can start off with one office and get a whole lot of features, or you can expand that out globally. I mean, we're on average right now, we're saving people 15 to 40% just here in the US. The global savings, if you as a customer, or you've got customers where you've got locations internationally, the savings are ridiculous what you can do. And right now, people are looking to save money and reinvest in other parts of the business. Also, we've seen a lot of customers who have to get rid of locations that aren't profitable, or they're on hold right now, a lot of transformation happening. When you move those offices around using SD-WAN, you keep the IP addresses, you keep, you don't have to reconfigure all the hardware, which means you could have a secretary, move all the equipment. I mean, I wouldn't see you doing it, but I mean, you could have anybody there move the equipment to another building, and all you're worried about is getting new internet circuits, plugging it in, making a few config changes on the front of the SD-WAN box, and everything that sits behind it doesn't need to be reconfigured, doesn't have to be messed with. You don't need a technician flying out there. Good luck trying to get there anyway. You'd probably have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and so it really helps.
So to be clear, don't let the secretary move SD-WAN box in the circuits.
We've actually had quite a few install the SD-WAN box. They do a great job, thank God. So.
Yeah, no, just playing. Eli, you have maybe a different perspective with challenges and obstacles given the global nature. Anything agents should look out for or gotchas as they bring opportunities to us?
I mean, it's a great question. The low-hanging fruit, the way I see it, is anybody with a distance, long-haul connectivity between sites. The easiest one, if you're an agent out there looking for opportunities, is a customer that's, say, in the technology or the manufacturing space. Those seem to be the ones that take advantage of global SD-WAN type of functions, at least as much, if not more, than other verticals. And the low-hanging fruit in terms of locations are customers with sites in Asia Pac locations, China specifically. China has a unique set of problems in terms of getting in and out of the country with network traffic. We solved that issue in a very elegant way that helps to improve performance just by sheer virtue of the fact that we've got a trusted partner network that comes out of China that doesn't get exposed to the filtering that you might otherwise see your traffic get exposed to for private enterprise traffic. So that one's the low-hanging fruit. Domestic US to any kind of a long distance type of a connection. We've got data centers for our GPN in Europe, for example, in Amsterdam and Frankfurt. And so anything that's clustered around the European continent would also fall into that same category. Beyond that, it really tends to fall into buckets in terms of what is the pain point in terms of applications. A couple of them that come off the top of my head are UCaaS. So UCaaS, you tend to use for voice and video. Voice tends to suffer at somewhere around 250 milliseconds of latency. You start to see the garbled audio leading to the worst case scenario of dropped calls entirely. Our GPN, I think as Dave mentioned, we've got an SLA around our GPN that you'll see that reliability of that network never rise to the level of latency that will cause an issue for UCaaS type of connectivity. So I'd look at that for customers that are using UCaaS in international type of locations. And I suppose I'll leave you with the last one for this moment would be something that might take advantage of WAN optimization. So as I mentioned, our GPN POP locations have WAN optimization functionality built in. And to be clear, WAN op offers TCP deduplication, compression, and layer 7 application acceleration. So if you have a customer that has a TCP-based application, such as a file transfer, even database connectivity, that comes from a location other than domestic US coming back to the domestic US for that source, or even transferring information back and forth, chances are that WAN optimization it won't reduce the latency. Latency is what it is. It's a function of the distance between points A and B, but it will effectively cache that data so that the differences, the deltas end up getting sent across the wide area network and get subjected to the high latencies, while the things that remain for the most part static are delivered at local area speeds. And it'll feel like you've reduced the latency and get the customer productive that much more quickly.
Thank you, Eli. Let's keep it with you real quick. I think a lot of companies now have been forced to make that change to the cloud, move a lot of the service and application and other critical business pieces to the cloud. How's SD-WAN helping with that digital transformation, with the cloud transformation that inevitably is going on at the moment?
A drop there, John. Can you repeat the first part of that? I think I heard the last part.
Yeah, so with everyone being forced to move to the cloud these days, we see that SD-WAN is playing a part in the digital transformation. Give us a little idea of what SD-WAN is doing to enable the digital transformation and the move to the cloud.
So the feature that applies to that most directly would be our multi-cloud connect functionality. So that's that ability, as I mentioned earlier, where you can utilize our global private network to ride on that global superhighway and then effectively off-ramp to all of the well-connected cloud providers. Again, they're either infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. So think of folks like AWS. If you're a customer that's got a virtual private cloud, a virtual data center that's running in AWS, you can take advantage of the AireSpring Global Private Network to ride that connection to whichever region your AWS instance might be running in and more effectively access your virtual private cloud. Same applies if you're a customer of Azure. Same applies if you're a customer of Oracle, using Fast Connect as an example. Salesforce.com customers, those that have Salesforces that use that type of CRM application, Dynamics, consumed from Azure. All of those end up being line of business applications that, as customers migrate more from this on-premises data center and you start to see this either fully adopted cloud-based solution for these applications, or at the very least a hybrid solution where some of it is running on the customer's private data centers and some is outsourced to the cloud. The very nature of that reliability, flexibility, and scale of the global private network offers the ability to effectively support the line of business applications. Because at the end of the day, these customers aren't really looking to buy this global SD-WAN. They're looking to buy something that will help them enhance and support the lifeblood of their applications or their business, which is their applications.
Excellent. Well, sounds like I may need a SD-WAN box at my house. Can any of you guys help me out with that, maybe? Mike, you know anyone that could make that happen?
I think so, yeah. We sell a few.
Yeah, that's right.
We've had to give up a couple of ours actually just to fulfill customer orders. So Bear with us.
Yeah, SD-WAN is exploding. For AireSpring, it's one of our largest selling products. It's the one that's growing the fastest internally, and we continue to adopt and innovate. AireSpring brings on great people, like you see here, great experts to help you, the agent, master agents, and the entire community and channel. We're a 100% channel company, and we bring on guys like this to help you win, and that's what we do. Guys, in closing, any final thoughts, Mike? Any helpful hints, tips, or tricks to leave with the folks?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the reason to go with SD-WAN is you're going to build an absolutely rock solid network. I mean, nobody wants to be flying out to the data center, worrying about circuits going down. You really can't afford any interruption to your working from home or to your business. You got to save money. Again, time and time again, almost every single deal we're saving 15 to 40%. It's a no-brainer. You get full mesh connectivity. The migrations from what you have now to where you're trying to go, where new deployments happen in weeks, not months. And that's true even on our global SD-WAN network in foreign countries. And again, we can quote internet circuits in over 180 countries now and a lot of other services as well. You have the ability to add WAN optimization and other features easily. You can standardize your network. You can centralize security and visibility, so you can put firewalls in the cloud or firewalls network-based or at your headquarters data center, colo, et cetera. You get rock-solid uptime, reachability, and easy configuration. You really finally get that one pane of glass everybody's been talking about for the last 20 years. And if you haven't seen one of our SD-WAN demos of the orchestrator, we're happy to do that for you. If you reach out to us, we've also got some videos. But you can also protect a lot of critical traffic that before you couldn't necessarily distribute out to different data centers or different offices, and now you're kind of forced to, right? But now you can protect not just voice and video, but virtual desktop storage, replication, long distance vMotion if you're doing VMware, EMR, electronic medical records, ERP, CRM systems, plus cloud, colo, and SaaS connectivity of any kind. And again, save lots of money, so you're doing more with less. Everybody would rather, cut. I mean, I had a customer the other day. They're spending $120,000 a month. They're literally going to save 30%. Can't guarantee that in every situation, but I will tell you, in every situation, the savings are pretty significant. That you should be doing something now. And the guys who are doing something now are the ones that are surviving or even getting bigger. The ones that are sitting on the sideline and they're getting freaked out and they're kind of paralyzed like a deer in the headlights. Those guys are going out of business. I mean, I got to be honest. If you act now, you get those savings. You start kind of restructuring your business, restructuring your network. You're going to be around next year and the year after that, and so on. So we're happy to help, and I think the AireSpring agents and everybody who works with us is doing a great job. So thank you to everybody out there. We appreciate it.
Eli, final thoughts?
I'd leave you with a couple. So I'll repeat what I said a couple times throughout this call, and that is that the global private network side of this, from the global SD-WAN perspective that's offered by AireSpring, offers reliability, scale, and agility. Important for customers to consider for a long-haul type of connectivity. The other thing I'd stress is that SD-WAN by nature, for the most part, tends to be an OpEx solution rather than a CapEx solution. So for an agent, that's important to reinforce with the customer because you look at this from a financial perspective. CapEx requires that a customer purchase a piece of equipment that they capitalize and then amortize over a certain amount of time. The CapEx side of this becomes a monthly recurring model. Your financial responsible folks within the customers that you're talking to will consume this much more easily than they will consume a CapEx type of a model. And whoever your signers are, those responsible parties that you're looking at that actually sign off on the solution, will oftentimes have authority to go to the level of a CapEx solution much more quickly than they will to an OpEx solution, much more quickly than they'll have the ability to reach to the level of a CapEx solution.
Thank you. Dave, final thoughts?
I think this is more for the agents, and there's a couple of thoughts here. One, you as an agent have the opportunity to utilize any of the resources you see on this call and on this broadcast. You've got senior VPs of engineering, solution engineers, architects. You've got myself to utilize at your disposal, which is huge. We'll go shoulder to shoulder. We'll walk in with you. And the earlier we are in the engagement process, we will help you win those deals. And we've proven it with different organizations. We've been successful here for that. The other thing we've done, which is really important, is where do you start? How do you begin that conversation? Our marketing and executives and the team that you see here has done a phenomenal job of putting together the tools that you can use, from battle cards to white papers to websites. You may have a chance to see one of the videos that we've just put together fairly recently. We're really excited about that. So our goal is to give you everything that you need to strike the conversation, to give you the information you need to be a trusted advisor, to walk through and position this solution accordingly. And then at that time, we're here to come in early in the stage to do the needs requirements calls, to get line of business and technical alignment, and at that point work to right size the opportunities and close that deal and shorten those sales cycles, both for the client because they need to move fast, and obviously that's important for you because the faster we close, the faster we implement, the faster those compensation commission structure starts to come in, and you get to recognize that. So that's my final thought.
Thank you, Dave. And guys, appreciate your time today. It's been valuable to hear your insights, your expertise in what is going to be a great year with SD-WAN and an exploding technology moving forward. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. If you'd like to know more about
moderating all of us here.
Yeah, no problem. If you'd like to know a little bit more about AireSpring's SD-WAN solution, you can look at airspring.com and our new website, airspringglobal.com. Huge improvements and great insight, great information on those websites. You can get in touch with me at john.young@airspring.com. I can put you in touch with anybody here. Of course, we're all on LinkedIn and various social media platforms, so you can find us. We're not hiding from anyone. So I do appreciate that. And look for more on our total stack of products so that you can continue to earn the most commissions possible with one vendor. And finally, I'd like to thank the team over at UCaaS Connection for bringing this show to life. SD-WAN is a huge part of our industry, and bringing this technology forward and having the conversations is exactly what agents and master agents in our community really needs, just more conversation. So we do appreciate your dedication to the technology and the platform. Now remember, the SD-WAN show will return in 2 weeks. We'll have new hosts, new panelists, and a lot of new ideas involving SD-WAN. So I do appreciate your time and look for the next show in 2 weeks. Thank you.